Okay.
For real.
All right.
We have a market icon on the line.
One of our favorite ladies, I tell you, you ever get to Houston, you got to find Miss Deavra Daughtry. She's got it going on.
Oh,
Hey, what's going on, Deavra?
oh, wow. And look, I'm easy to find, Brother Larry. KG, good to hear you on the air today. Happy Sunday to everyone.
Yes, indeed.
And yeah, it's a lot going on. It's, it's a lot going on.
And
But,
so, how are you holding up?
you know what? We are people of hope.
Hmm.
We are a people of hope and expectation for the best. So I'm grounded in that place right there
Hmm.
as I do what I'm called to do, and that's care for our community,
Yeah.
support our community, empower our community,
Yeah.
in whatever form that is at the time in the season where it's needed.
So,
And so
Deavra,
COVID is where we are.
so since this podcast is global, tell the world about the Texas Women's Empowerment Foundation.
Sure. Texas Women Empowerment Foundation, TWEF. I founded back, 18 years now.
Wow.
About 18. Larry, you remember.
Yes, ma'am. We
You
were right there with you.
there.
Yeah.
You've been there 18 years. It's been 18 years. I have some pictures I have to send to you. But it's a nonprofit that was geared to help families and community, and started out empowering women. And of course, the women have children that had needs, and so we branched off into our youth component, and then from there we went to family component. And what we do is we host various seminars and programs through our empowerment ETI training institution, and we are located in Houston, Texas. We have the Empowerment Community Center, which I built maybe back in '06.
Mm-hmm.
It sits on 8 acres, and we have a full form and urban garden, where we teach young people how to garden and grow their food, which is so needed right now, and then turn them into entrepreneurs. And so TWF, we have hosted an array of programs throughout the 18 years. But the great thing, Larry and KG, is that we have been the organization that have been able to reinvent ourselves to meet the need of the people. Whether it was Hurricane Harvey, we was able to step up and put together our children's program, who was dealing with the devastation and the trauma of Hurricane Harvey. We was able to meet the need. And now we in another crisis. And so TWF is able to stand up again and meet the need. And so that's what we do. Just have a lot of great partners all over the world, and I'm glad this is a global program because we have regional directors in Africa, South Africa. We have regional directors in the Bahamas, Florida, LA, all of Nebraska, all over. And so this gives us the opportunity to, make sure that we're making a global impact.
Wow, I did not know that. I'm sitting here, my face is, and I was looking at Unc like, what?
Let me share this with you. The late Dr. Miles Monroe, I first met through Deavra's program, and he played an instrumental part in her. And I wanted to kind of shift Deavra just for 1 second, because as people learn about how you're building, and you said reinventing yourself and reorganizing to meet the new needs of the community, could you talk about the powerful impact that your parents and moreover your mom played? Because she was a beautiful spirit when I had a chance to meet her, and I'd just like you to share that love on the show today.
Sure, and you're speaking of my grandmother.
Your grandmother, yes,
and
ma'am.
my granny, and which is the whole reason why we're going to be talking about what we're talking about the campaign a little later, which is so important. But I was raised by my grandmother, and my grandmother was the church treasurer for 60 years. So it was my grandmother who instilled the respect for money in me. She had always wanted, us to learn and have a respect for money because she was the church treasurer. And I tell this story. My grandmother would bring the money home, Larry, the church money home, and she would lay it over the bed. And of course, with pennies and nickels and quarters.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm dating myself because what the wrappers, what you used to wrap the coins with.
Yes, ma'am.
Some of the audience, Larry. Some of the audience may not know, but. And so that was my job. Me and my cousins at the early age of 5 and 6. And Larry, what I would do as a young, 5 and 6 year old, I would get in the bed and just roll in the money. And of course, the money would stick to my clothes, but I knew that I had to make sure I'm shaking myself off really, really good because that was the church's money. And my grandmother, it was the rule of the house. You did not touch
mess with the
church
church's
money. Yeah. And
So
we had to account for all the money.
Deavra, you were a money magnet back then.
But it was the respect of it. And I think, let me tell you this, and I'm glad you said this, because what comes to you is what you respect.
Uh-huh.
So if you don't respect it, you can't wish and pray to obtain it.
Mm-hmm.
So it was the respect of it back then. Talk about my grandmother, who is, like I said, been my business partner. We started our healthcare agency together, and she was the first accountant and all that good stuff. But it was just from the love of my grandmother, and our now we have our family businesses.
And KG, I have to share. They took me in when I was not sure my own way to walk, and Deavra would look out. She said, "Boy, come here, come over to the office, sit down," and would make me stay 2-3 hours. Would pray over me because she knew I had a spirit that was wandering all over the place. She said, "Larry, we love you here, but I need you to come over and just spend some time, sit up under me for a minute." Almost every Tuesday or Wednesday, I was at the facility. I didn't have a job, but she kept me out of trouble. She kept me out of trouble.
Deavra, when I had the show Access Houston, which you were a guest on many times for many years,
Yes.
that story and you saying respect the money, I would, and I told you this, I always ask financial people that I had on the show where the responsibility lied when it came to financial education and responsibility, and all of that. I was like, should it be at home or should the schools be responsible? So they really didn't teach us at school. And Deavra gave the best out of all the money people that I have talked to.
Sure.
And asked that question because that's my signature question to money people.
Yeah.
Deavra Daughtry's answer is the best. And it was the story of her grandmother being the treasury at the church. And she was like, you have to respect the money.
Yes, sir.
Respect the money. That's the best answer anyone has ever gave, Deavra. You still hold that. You hold that title.
Real simple. And, it doesn't matter whether you are a, hundredaire, thousandaire, millionaire, billionaire. If you don't have any respect for it, and especially in these times in this season, the individuals who have respected the money in the past, they're going to be able to move forward and see some opportunities in the future. Mm-hmm. But you have to, it starts with the boundaries, and it starts with you understanding, what the purpose of money is, and, to help and to give back, and, all the tools that you can do with it. But it starts from the heart. And that's what my grandmother, I was able to see her be that example for our community. And, hundreds of people would come to her house, and, she didn't have a lot of money, but what she had, she was able to make it work. Mm-hmm. And so just a lesson that, I always try to instill in everyone that I come across who wants to talk about money, because it's the respect of it.
So, Deavra, fast forward, bring us up to speed on TWEF and what's new and good and exciting today.
Well, you know what? Like I said, Larry, the great thing is, out of, going on 18 years, TWF has been able to meet the need of the community. And always, my heart is to be a voice to the voiceless. And in this particular time, when we're dealing with COVID-19, the voice that's needed to be heard is the elderly and the frail.
Mm.
We have to speak up on their behalf. All of us have, grandparents or had grandparents or have that person in your life that acts as a grandparent. We have the muddies or the nimas or the grannies, and those are the most vulnerable population that immune system is vulnerable and need to be guarded.
Mm-hmm.
And I get it. I take care of my grandmother right now, and we have a lot of young people that used to come in and give her hugs and kisses and want to love on her. But at this particular time, because we have to practice social distancing,
Yes,
it's a different place.
Mm-hmm.
And so what we want to do, and what we're campaigning and preparing everyone for, is to not to do our norm, but to keep our elderly people safe. And it's a way. I heard you speak earlier about washing your hands. And the social distancing with our grandparents.
Mm-hmm.
My healthcare company. I've been doing this for 25 years, taking care of the elderly, and I'm seeing firsthand, because my team is on the front line, going into the homes, providing home care for the elderly, and you see individuals who would in and out without washing their hands, without the social distancing, not acknowledging, okay, if they have been around other people. And because, you could be okay, but, that elderly person's immune systems can't fight back like, someone else can. And so that's why we have to be the voice. We have to be the voice for older people, and for our jewels, our pearls of wisdom, and they need someone to speak up for them. And so that's what TWF is doing.
Is there a study guide with the foundation that someone could go to who's listening to the podcast today to pick up on some of these things, or do we just need to add some more responsibility to those of us who have seniors or elders in our home to just be more responsible?
And Larry, that's where we are. This is a new deal.
Mm-hmm.
And everybody, all the doctors, and I appreciate everybody who's on the front line working, and everybody, we're trying to figure this out. So we don't have, we don't have a map to say this is what we need to do.
Okay.
That's why it was so dear on my heart to speak up for our frail and elderly community, the population, the voice that needs to be heard, that needs to go out and say, hey, I need you to social distance yourself from me, because, my immune system is different than yours. And so I know on the website, we are gathering information.
Mm-hmm.
And on TWF's website, we're gathering information to put out there. But basically, it's just something that everybody can do. And we're making special provisions for those beautiful jewels and pearls of wisdom that has, given their lives for us. And now we have to fight for them by doing what we need to do to help fight the coronavirus.
Someone on the podcast listening right now, your words have enlightened them, probably moved them to organize. We need to do this to take care of the jewels of the community.
I mean, and it just goes, it all works together. Mm-hmm. That's why in the beginning, I was so frustrated with younger people who weren't taking this thing seriously. And it was just like, okay, well, if you care about your grandmama or your granddaddy, you will stay at home because the issue is one, we don't know who's infected. We don't even have enough
Right.
tests to test people to know who's infected. So even though you one of the young invincibles, you going around here and you may feel fine, you could be infected and you don't feel nothing, and you go over grandma or granddad's house, and then you end up
Giving it to them.
infecting them, and
Right.
then they end up getting really sick because you being a bonehead and not staying at home and still wanting to be around. So I mean, the best thing to do is to, of course, follow the guidelines. And even though it's tough, I mean, Unc and I, we were talking, off air about how we're missing the human touch.
Oh
Like
my
if
God.
it's the one thing that I'm missing, it is just that, to go,
Yes.
see other people and, hug on them and touch them and all of that. So now with social distancing and all that, but we see that it's working.
Right.
And if we continue to do what we have to do, I believe that we will beat this.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And that's what we need. We need you, KG. We need you, Larry, out there reminding everyone to think about the elderly people. Think about the frail. Think about, the ones who cannot speak up for themselves and don't have the platform. My grandmother don't have a podcast. She don't have a blog page, you
Right.
know, but she needs a voice out there to say, hey, we matter. Our seniors matter.
Mm.
And that's what TWS is doing. We're letting people know that our precious jewels, the seniors, the ones that have given to us all so unselfishly, that the seniors and the elderly matter. So we have to take care of them by doing what we're supposed to do, washing our hands, cover
Mm.
our mouths if we cough, sneeze, with tissue, avoid touching our eyes, and don't get close to, the social distancing.
Right.
Making sure you disinfect all your surfaces around them. If you're living in a house with granny or your grandpa or any elderly person, making sure that you disinfect. Take care of yourself, and that's going to help you take care of them.
And since you're an advocate before we get out of here, I am very interested to know, since you are a money woman and you're an advocate for the elderly and care about them, what were your thoughts when the Trump administration and even the lieutenant governor here in Texas were running with the narrative that the elderly would be willing to sacrifice themselves and their lives for their children and grandchildren so the American economy could get back afloat?
Larry,
Go ahead, tell him. Let him know.
you know, I have been called several things, and hopefully a lot of them is good. But one of the things I'm known for is being a businesswoman with a soul.
Mm-hmm.
And a soul, and this is some of my international colleagues, they call me the businesswoman with a soul. And that's really the heart. And so when I hear statements like that, I'm not surprised. Because when you're around enough of these people, you understand that there's not too many of us who are really in the trenches, who are really, in the grassroots. Most of them, they're hiding out. They're not out advocating for anybody.
Mm-hmm.
So I get it, because that's where they are. And that's and what I have learned is that people can only say and do with the capacity that they have. And so when I heard those statements, I just know that, we, the ones of us who know better and that needs to do better and can do better, we need to lend our voices, because that was ultimately ridiculous. To want to throw anyone away for the sake of capitalism.
Mm.
And that's really what it is,
Yeah.
Very, very, very unfortunate. But thank God that we have individuals like yourself and KG and myself, and of course our mayor. I like to call him the people's mayor,
Mm-hmm.
because he's a mayor for the people. And our city is so blessed to have the leadership of Lena Hidalgo and all Congresswoman Jackson Lee and Al Green,
Yeah.
because we need individuals that care about the people.
Indeed.
in office.
KG and I said if you had to find what a leader looked like, you could see in Sylvester Turner, in Sheila Jackson Lee, and in Judge Hidalgo the face of what I believe true leadership Governor Cuomo in New York really looks like. These people have difficult decisions to make, but they make it with compassion. They have compassion for fellow human beings, not just Americans, but fellow human beings. So we applaud you, Deavra. I don't know if we got the website in because I'd like for people to visit to see what you are doing. Did we give you a website?
And your social.
Yeah, the website is twef.org. twef.org. And they can see all the different programs that TWF is doing, and then, of course, get more information on our elderly and frail campaign, the Voice of the Voiceless.
Indeed.
And we'll leave it right there.
That's what's Deavra, thank you so much for being on the Public Affairs Podcast.
Well, thank you, gentlemen, and I know that together we serve, and together we'll make a difference, and together we'll make an impact.
Thank you, Deavra, and thank you for listening to the Public Affairs Podcast. We'll be back next week.